The forest beyond Havenwood lay drenched in shadows, its ancient trees weaving a canopy so dense that moonlight struggled to find its way to the forest floor. A hush hung in the air, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. The wind was shy, cold, and indifferent, much like the wilderness itself, where only the strong survived. For Duke, a lone German shepherd, the forest had become both home and harsh tutor. He remembered once belonging to someone, but that memory had faded like footprints in water. Now every night was the same: hunt, survive, and retreat into solitude. But tonight something was different. A faint, broken whimper cut through the stillness. Duke's ears snapped upright. At first, every instinct shouted to ignore it. This forest was full of wounded creatures, and he had no interest in playing the hero. Yet the sound wasn't animal, it was human. The scent teased his nose, stirring curiosity in his sharp amber eye. Without a second thought, he padded toward the noise, branches snapping under his weight, until he froze at the edge of a tangle of thorny vines. There, trapped and trembling, was a small boy no older than 6. His frame was too frail for the forest, his clothes shredded, dirt caked on his face, and bare feet scraped raw. Exhaustion painted dark circles beneath his wide, fearful eyes. He lay still, too weak to fight the branches anymore. For a heartbeat, Duke considered turning away. Humans had abandoned him once. Why risk anything for one now? Then a strangled sob tore from the boy's throat, so raw and desperate that Duke's heart, a muscle he thought long since numbed, skipped a beat. If he left, the boy would die before dawn. With a quiet huff, Duke stepped forward. He lowered his muzzle and gripped a thorny branch between his teeth, snapping it free. The boy flinched, but Duke worked methodically, tearing away at the vines, until at last the boy was released. For a moment, neither moved. The child's eyes locked onto Duke's, wide with uncertainty, while the shepherd tilted his head in patient invitation. Though his legs trembled, the boy crawled forward. Duke stayed still, letting him draw near. The forest chill bit at the boy's thin frame, and Duke could not ignore the shiver running through him. They set off in silence, Duke leading the way with ears twitching for danger, the boy stumbling behind. Every few steps, the child swayed, exhaustion threatening to buckle his knees. When he could go no further, Duke stopped and glanced back, his calm eyes urging him onward. The boy summoned every last ounce of will and dragged himself forward once more. Soon, Duke halted again amid a cluster of low bushes dotted with dark, ripe berries. He sniffed, then bit off a cluster and trotted back to the boy, dropping the offering at his feet. Hesitant, the boy stared at the berries, his dry lips parting as though unsure they were real. Duke nudged them forward with his nose. Trembling, the child picked one, biting into its sweet flesh. His eyes widened as sweetness flooded his mouth, and he devoured the rest with desperate hunger. For the first time that night, strength returned to his limbs. Duke nodded once, then turned and resumed their journey, the boy following with firmer step. They ventured deeper, the underbrush thickening around them. The night wind howled, rattling branches overhead, and the boy shivered in Duke's wake. Without warning, Duke flopped onto the leaf-strewn ground and lay still. He looked back at the boy with soft insistence. After a moment's hesitation, the boy sank down beside him, curling his frail body against Duke's thick, warm fur. Duke remained motionless, sharing his heat. Outside, the wind shrieked, but beneath the shepherd's coat, the boy finally stopped trembling. Night would be long, but he would not face it alone. When dawn broke, golden light spilled between the tree trunks, painting the forest in warmth. Birdsong stitched through the air as leaves quivered in the gentle breeze. Duke stirred, lifting his head and shaking off stray leaves. The boy, half awake, blinked up at him, confusion clouding his tired gaze. Duke gave a soft huff and walked a few paces forward, pausing to look back. The boy pushed himself up, legs wobbling but determined, and they moved toward sounds beyond the trees. A faint smell of wood smoke drifted through the air, promising human presence. With each step, the scent grew stronger until they emerged into a small clearing. There stood a modest cottage framed by a simple garden and a wooden fence. Smoke curled lazily from the stone chimney, and a front door creaked open. A woman stepped out, her grey hair pulled back neatly, her face etched with surprise at the sight before her. Duke stood protectively beside the boy, who gripped the gate slats as if it were a lifeline. Eleanor's heart clenched at the boy's hollow cheeks and trembling frame. She knelt before him, voice gentle. "Oh my goodness, you poor thing, come inside." She reached for him, but the boy recoiled, eyes darting to Duke. The shepherd held his ground, silent but vigilant, and Eleanor paused. "Is he your friend?" she asked softly. The boy nodded faintly. Relief softened her expression. "Then both of you come in." She opened the gate, and after a brief hesitation, the boy stumbled forward. Duke followed, scanning every shadow with keen alertness. Inside, the air was warm and smelled of fresh bread and burning firewood. Eleanor guided the boy to a plush armchair by the hearth, where he sank gratefully. She bustled into the kitchen and returned with a steaming bowl of soup. Kneeling, she held a spoon to his lips. "Here, sweetheart." The boy stared, fear flickering in his eyes. Then, ever so slowly, he let the broth touch his tongue and sighed in contentment. Across the room, Duke's shoulders relaxed. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe they were safe. Days passed in gentle routine. Eleanor offered warm meals, clean clothes, and a soft bed. Sam, Eleanor's name for the boy, spoke little, his words cautious, but his eyes grew brighter. Duke never left his side, watching over him as though he were his own pup. Trust built slowly, like sunrise breaking through fog. Then one morning, a shift. Sam sat on the porch steps clutching a piece of bread. Duke stood nearby, observing. After a moment's hesitation, Sam broke off a small piece and held it out. Duke studied the offering, then stepped forward and ate from Sam's hand. Tail wagging, he sealed their unspoken bond, and Sam's lips curved into the smallest, most triumphant smile. Though Eleanor cherished Sam and Duke, she could not ignore reality. One evening, after tucking Sam into his new bed, she called the local authorities. No missing child reports came up. She confessed that Sam would not speak of his past, and that Duke seemed trained but ownerless. The officer promised to check surrounding towns. After hanging up, Eleanor sat long in the silent house, heart aching at the thought of losing him. The next day, she called her grandson Michael, a kind-hearted farmer. When he arrived, his eyes fell on Duke, and he murmured, "This dog was trained. He's no stray." He watched Sam stroke Duke's fur and said thoughtfully, "They trust each other. Maybe the question isn't where they came from, but where they belong." Eleanor felt hope stir. Michael's farm offered wide fields, a barn, and purpose for both boy and dog. Though parting would hurt, it might also be a new beginning. On moving day, dawn was quiet and pale. Sam stood on the porch, backpack straps in trembling hands. Duke stood alert beside him. Eleanor knelt, cupping Sam's face. "You will be safe with Michael. He's a good man." Sam hugged her fiercely, whispering a thank you. Then he turned to Duke, and the shepherd fell into step beside him. Together, they climbed into Michael's truck. Eleanor waved until the engine's rumble faded into the road, her heart both heavy and full. The ride to the farm was still, the morning sun warming the cab. Sam pressed his hand against the window, watching trees blur by. Duke rested his head in Sam's lap, a silent guardian. At Michael's gate, sprawling fields and grazing animals greeted them. Michael showed Sam the barn, the cozy farmhouse, and endless sky. That night, beneath a sky strewn with stars, Sam curled in his new bed, Duke lying close. For the first time in a long while, Sam did not feel lost or afraid. Back in Havenwood, Eleanor sat on her porch, remembering each moment. Days later, a letter arrived for Michael. Inside was a photograph. Sam smiling wide, arms wrapped around Duke. Eleanor traced the image with a tender finger, tears forming. She had given them shelter, but they had found their true home. In that moment, she understood that family was not just born, it was chosen. And in choosing each other, Sam and Duke had found where they belonged.